This is another episode of the Vision with Execution show. My name's Adam Torkelson. I have Dr. Laurie Emery here with me today. Hi, Dr. Emery.
Hi, Adam. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Your work with entrepreneurs and executives and people who have a lot of ability and potential, but are sort of stuck in some cycles is really interesting to me.
Mhm.
And I've had several people on my show who are executive coaches and or psychologists, mental health professionals. My wife is actually a therapist in a modality called emotional release therapy. But all of that is to say, when we work on ourselves, we can do a lot better things in the world in general. I think, and our mindset is critical to what we can accomplish and fulfilling our potential. And I believe that we're all children of God. We were put on this earth for a purpose, and fulfilling that purpose is incredibly important. So that's why I wanted to talk to you and have you on my show. So please take time and tell us about yourself, how you got to be where you are, if
Sure.
that is an important part of it. And just, yeah, time is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, it is an important part of it, Adam. When I work with people, I work through myself. And I think that's one of the things that I formally left the mental health field in 2012. It was a big decision for me after all those years of schooling and licensure and all that. But I was frustrated with the fact that I I was struggling within myself, right? I had all the accolades. I had gotten my doctorate degree. I was on my second career. I built businesses, made money, had my family, and underneath it all, Adam, I was struggling. I was struggling. I was struggling with an eating disorder, impulsive spending. I call it bouncing off walls now. I don't know if I knew I would have called it that back then, but I was running to accomplish and in the doing of life, but I couldn't settle inside myself enough to what I call from internal family systems, bring all parts home and create a safety and a peace inside myself so that I was living the most truly fulfilled life so that I could take in all of those accomplishments and feel, right? They were driven by needing to feel like I was good enough and worthy enough and whatever enough. And so I set out on a mission, and it's really felt like my life's purpose. I had a large group practice here in Boca Raton, Florida for about 15 years. And I was not only watching myself struggle, but even the people that I was working with struggle to make some incremental changes in doing formal therapy, but not really long lasting transformational work that was permanent. And I wanted it for me and I wanted it for everyone I worked with because I feel that we are a spirit having a human experience here. And that when we can connect to spirit, that the way to do that is to use this body as a thermometer, I call it, right? That this body's always showing me whether I'm in alignment or not. And only by cleaning out whatever is stuck in here can I truly be connected to spirit. Can I truly be operating out of my most highest self, my most godlike self, whatever everyone wants to call it for them.
Could I ask make an observation really quickly?
Sure.
So, for anyone listening just on audio, uh, one of the things that always fascinates me when people speak is their body language and the way they use their hands. So, if anyone's not watching the video of this, Dr. Emery has been using an up and down motion with her hands when she talks about herself and her center. And I've had other guests on the show talk about their chakras using that same exact gesture.
Mm.
And I think it's so fascinating. My wife really hates it when I point out, oh, I love how you used your hands when you were describing that thing. And she's very self conscious about it. But to me, it's just incredible the amount of communication you can get out of a gesture
Yeah.
because in the Catholic religion, I don't know if anybody knows this, but when you do that hand gesture from going from your forehead to your sternum, that's part of their spectacles, testicles, watch, wallet prayer. And our hand gestures are incredibly telling about
Yes.
ourselves, our background, and what we're trying to explain. And so I love how you're using your hand to talk about your soul, yourself, your center. And anyway, just
Well,
fascinating
I love you
observation.
bring it up, Adam, because I believe it's like 75% of our communication is nonverbal.
Right.
It's so important. And that's why you and I were joking about our fight with technology, but I'm such a people person because in the exchange in relationship is where the magic happens, right?
Very true.
And one of my mentors said, we get wounded in relationship and we heal in relationship. And it's such a great opportunity. One of my specialties in my program is Pathways to Intimacy with Couples. And I teach them the sacred space between you is where the relationship lives, and it's where the opportunity for healing any parts of ourself that were wounded growing up in any way. You don't even have to live through trauma, but because we're always interpreting as we grow, we're always misinterpreting our environment to mean something about how good enough we are, how not good enough we are, how special we are, how important we are. And so I think the nonverbal is so important. So I love that you brought that up. And so in my work, I began writing programs that were experiential, meaning instead of just sitting around talking, because my Ignite book is about how mindset is not enough. It's a great slogan everybody has started to use, is like shift your mindset, shift your life. I'm not a believer that that's enough. I think we must absolutely use our mindset and know how to read the body, because that's where energy and emotion got trapped as we were growing up. That's where all of our interpretations of our environment happened. And when I set out to find those answers for myself, the first crack open for me to be able to even begin to truly heal was in being in a room or in an experience where I was using my whole self, my body, my emotions, my mind, in using all of it to heal, because in that release through the body, along with my mindset, along with being able to know when I am in alignment with myself and when I'm not, when I'm hijacked and when I'm not, or triggered and when I'm not, is so critically important for mastery of myself. And so I began writing my own programs, combining the somatic work where you can take mind, body, and spirit and know how to integrate all of them together in an experiential way.
Would you quickly define what you mean by somatic? I know sort of what it means, but I think that's somewhat of therapy jargon.
Sure, sure. It's, soma is the body, and
Okay.
somatic work means know how to read the body, know how to work with whatever gets triggered in the body, to connect with the emotion, to feel the emotion, and to even know what the healing moment is by being able to read what's happening inside of you. And without that, I call it like putting ice cream on top of poop. It's, all you're doing is layering over that unfinished business and trying to manage it by, I'll shift my belief, but that poop is still on the bottom, right? The unfinished, unhealed part of me is still on the bottom, which is why we might react to a staff member that's working for us because we're frustrated, or we, snap at our husband or our children, not wanting to, or our partner, because in that moment we're hijacked, and the brain doesn't even allow that higher level of thinking to happen when we're hijacked, because we're in survival in that moment. So all of my work is about, how do I understand when I'm in survival and then it's me against you and I'm in reaction, and then shift myself to being in my power, being in my most godlike spiritual place, my most authentic self, and then work with what's happening in the body. We work with what's happening in the trigger or in my mind all
Um,
together.
so you've mentioned God a couple of times now, and that, to me, that there's power in our words, I believe. And there's probably people listening to my show who are not Christian or who may not believe that there's a God, but I always talk about the fact that we may describe God or our higher power with different words, but all of us, I think, if not outright believe, we have a sense that there is something higher than us, more powerful. Some people might call it the universe or what have you. There's a lot of different words to describe the sense that we have that we're not the sole beings in the universe. Somebody created it, something created it, and intentionally put us all here for a reason. So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you have that belief system yourself.
Well, and because I want anyone who's listening or talking to me to be able to connect with me. You know,
Yep.
words, like you said, words have a lot of power. You'll hear me interchange God with authentic self, with spirit, with universe, and I interchange it because it doesn't really matter to me whether you have a religious belief
Yep.
or how you define. I always say to people, if my words don't fit, you redefine it for yourself so that you can use what I'm saying. Because I don't have any intention of going up against anybody's belief system, because everybody has a right to whatever they believe. And whether you believe that something intentionally put us here or not, the one place that I do think we all connect is when we have that feeling that we are in our heart, right? If God is love, if universe is oneness, if, and I'm defining it for anyone who's listening, if you can think of a time when you felt the most freed up and the most creative, passionate, joyful, uh, authenticity within yourself, it has this very expansive feeling. Now, to me, Adam, that expansive feeling is evidence of the oneness on the planet, of what I call my most godlike self, because I define God as being my most unconditionally loving, not ego love, but unconditionally loving, freed up experience of myself that I can be. And that doesn't mean my brain and my humanness. I mean, it's an energy thing to me. And I think we know when we're there and we know when we're not there, because when I'm triggered, I can feel my body constrict. I can hear the tone in my voice. I feel a different sense of myself in that moment. And then I know I'm not in alignment with my purpose on the planet is to be the most unconditionally loving, best human being I can be, so that everyone feels safe in relationship with me, so they can then unfold that part of themselves, right?
I really appreciate you taking the time to explain that. One of the things I noticed about myself when I am triggered is that my heart rate skyrockets.
Yeah.
And I started wearing a Fitbit this year, and every time I have these anxiety attacks, I that's probably not the best way to describe it, but when I feel intense emotion,
Yeah.
I can look at my Fitbit and my heart rate will be over 100 beats a minute within seconds, with just sitting there in my chair doing nothing other than feeling the anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
which is fascinating because that is something that actually pulls me out of the anxiety, is to notice it.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's the process I go through to take a second, notice that I'm in anxiety, look at my body, look at what's happening, and then it's a lot easier to work through it by doing that. I had no idea that a Fitbit would help me do that, but
Sure.
it's worked out really interestingly that way.
Yeah, I love that you do that. And I say to people, whatever brings you into awareness of the moment where you can become the observer of yourself. And I'm holding my hand above my head as if I could observe the body and observe the experience I'm having. And the experience is made up of three things: my thoughts, my feelings, and my physical sensations. So when we can notice those three, and not necessarily link them together, because we do that so quickly in a moment, and that becomes our experience. But in every moment, we're having all three of those experiences, and we're interpreting every moment. When we can become a master of ourselves and be the observer of that happening, then, only then, can we live in a really powerful way, because it starts with awareness. Without awareness, you've got nothing. And so with awareness, then you can do something with it. And that's where all the other tools come from. And behind your head, it says vision with execution is reality. All of my work begins with vision. I live my day-to-day life every year with vision, because the vision is your GPS system of what is it I'm committed to. And this is my work in my Keys to Mastery program. This is my work with couples, is what is it I'm committed to? And when I know what that is, commitment doesn't have anything to do with whether we feel like it. When we live a commitment-driven, vision-driven life, it's living my most purposeful, authentic self on the planet. And then for me to get there, all my stuff is going to come up. All my humanness is going to show up. And if I can then be in mastery of that happening and be able to choose my response based on what I'm committed to creating versus how I feel, then I'm in mastery in my life. And then life shows up, and the experience of life is so fulfilling and deep and rich.
So what is your vision for 2025?
So the part of my vision that I'm going to speak about first is my vision for my life. And it's been there since I was very little. I have always felt this pull and this draw to connect with other human beings in a way that I and they, as one, can ignite our most powerful, authentic, freed up, godlike selves together, where we create in a safe, unconditional relationship where both people in that safety can access I believe, like you, we all have a purpose on this planet. I think if we water it all down, regardless of the words, that purpose is to be our most authentic, loving self so that we connect with others in that way. Right. And to me, if we can connect that, when we connect that way, there's no war because we're not worried about being right. There's no hurting another person because we're not in survival protecting ourselves. And that's the planet that I want to live on, Adam. And so whether I do it one person at a time or 30 people that are in a room with me in one of my programs, I'm that way at Dunkin' Donuts, and I'm that way at home with my children and my husband. And when I get hijacked and I go on automatic, I clean it up, and I give myself grace, and I ask for forgiveness, and I get back into alignment with who it is that I am supposed to be as I live on this planet. So that is with me every year, always, and that drives me through all the doing in my life. From that vision, then well, how's it going to show up and how's it going to look? In my programs, we take all domains of life, not just three, but all domains. My health and wellness. In order for me to be my best self, I've got to take care of this body. So I work out and I make sure I'm in the best shape I can. I'm 56 years old now, and I stay in as good of shape as I can. Not only so that the body is well conditioned, I have high, my optimal brain functioning, and my systems are working well, but I'm also being an inspiration and a model to my children and anyone who works with me. I can't be 300 pounds and be talking to you about living your most authentic self if I'm covering it up with eating over something. Right. And I can't be invested in some addiction. And I think as human beings, I think we're addicts by nature. I use that word very loosely, right? I don't use it in the AA way. I think anything we use to cover up emotions and parts of ourselves it can be social media, it can be TV, it can be work, it can be anything. And so health and wellness is very big for me. And I have a goal this next year to be as strong as I can possibly be in the best shape of my life. So I've got a trainer who's working with me. My vision for my relationship is that my husband and I go on more trips next year, just ourselves. We came off of a trip from this weekend, and we just talked about, okay, what are our trips for next year? And And
How
so
long
we
have you been married, by the way?
almost 20 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And an interesting story I want to share with you is I married my husband, divorced him, and married again.
Oh,
And that's where I say the most sacred space. It's one of my most magical places I love to work is with couples, because when you can hone in on that sacred space and not be in reaction to each other and not see it as a me against you, but how do we create the space between us to be this most godlike sacred space where when we come home to each other, we can just let those walls come down and go, hey, I'm feeling messy today. I feel triggered today. I feel angry today. Can we just sit down together and create that space, and not fight against each other? And so that to me is the most amazing playground for us to really know ourselves is in coupleship. And then that's the space that our children play is in the space of our relationship. And so, along with my vision for my husband and I, is my vision for my relationship with my children. I have three of my own biological children, and my husband and I took in two other children over the years. And I am as dedicated to those human beings as I am to every other human being who walks into my space to work with me or is in my programs. And in that way, I see the oneness on the planet. We're all the same, regardless of our titles. Love is love. And everyone is worthy of that level of presence and attention and care and safety. And then I look at recreation and leisure and vacationing and my community service, my spiritual work, my personal development work. And I take that in order for me to carry out that vision and that purpose in my life, then I've got to be operating on all cylinders in my life. And so I'm always making sure that my vision points to all the doing in my life in all domains. And that's the work that I do. It's called Ignite Your Life.
nice.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. And uh, 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 all the people I've had on my show, they do tend to think about all the areas of their life. Everybody does it in their own way,
Mhm.
but it is on average, I've noticed most people I have on the show do care about being in good health, having strong relationships with whoever's in their life, whether it's a spouse or business partners or whoever, but
Yeah.
strong, deep relationships are very important. I've I'll have been married for 20 years in September to the
Congrats.
same lady, and we have two kids. My oldest, he's 18 and he's graduated high school now and has a full-time job as an electrician, but he'll shortly be leaving the home for 2 years to serve a church mission
Mm.
in Frankfurt, Germany. And the way that we do that in our church is he does not get to come home for those whole 2 years. He stays out there, he learns the language, he lives it, and it's a growing experience. I did that myself when I was 19.
Yeah.
So
That's incredible.
y- when we put ourselves in those situations where we get to see what we're made of, the work that we've done preparing for those kind of situations really shows us how much work we have left to do, for one thing, but also allows us to experience those things in a much deeper way. So,
Absolutely.
whether someone's trying to overcome an addiction or just become a better version of themselves, working daily work on yourself is incredibly important. And
Absolutely.
it's possible to do only with the help of somebody who you trust to help you through it. None of us can see our all of our blind spots.
Yeah.
So we unfortunately don't have any more time today, but I appreciate all the insight that you've brought, and we only scratched the surface. I know. But if there's a call to action that you wanted to throw out really quickly, whether it's a download of a book that you wrote or a website that you want people to go to, what would you say that would be?
So probably the best way to stay connected to me is we've got an Ignite Your Life Facebook group page on Facebook. People can come and join me there. And my book Ignite is up on my website, which is the website is ignitewithdrlaurie.com. godlike.com, and they can grab the download of the book on the website. Those are the best ways to stay connected to me.
Okay, excellent. I'll put that in the description of the show as well so people can click on it.
Awesome.
And I really appreciate your time today. This will probably come out sometime this week before the 4th of July for sure. But anyway, it's been my pleasure to have you on the show, Dr. Emery. And this has been an episode of the Vision with Execution show.
Thank you so much.
Okay, that is it. We are officially done.
Awesome.
Is there anything you like to receive from these episodes? I will put a video and audio versions both.
Okay.
So I
Is
would
that,
love it if you'd share them as
yeah,
much
yeah.
as you wish.
Send it will you be able to send those links to me by email?
Yeah, did we connect on Podmatch?
Uh, I think so.
Okay. If
Yeah.
we did, then I'll send it through there. That's where
Yes.
they like to keep their communication. But you can always email me directly,
Okay.
or I'm an open book. I love when people email me or text me
Okay.
random stuff. LinkedIn is the only social network that I am on.
Okay.
Um, so I'll share this on there as well.
Okay, great. All right, Adam, thank you so much. Good luck with all you're doing.
Thank you so much, and good luck to you as well, Dr. Emery.
Take care.
Bye bye.